I finished the first video with the frame back on the engine and the swing arm, yokes and forks fitted. In this video I'll be continuing with building up the frame to get to a rolling chassis. When I bought the bike, the wheels didn't look too bad from a distance, but on closer inspection it was clear that they needed some attention. From memory, although it's not clear in any of my pictures, one of the wheels had some damage that needed attention. So after stripping, I dropped them off at a local wheel specialist where the damage was repaired and both wheels were blasted and powder coated. On reflection, I should have asked for the cush drive area on the rear wheel to be masked, as getting the rotor back into the rubbers was a challenge. For now, I have only fitted 3 of the 6 rubbers, which from what I can determine is a common mod to soften up the drive. This may need to be revisited. Although in my first video I said I did not strip the bevel box, we can see from my pictures that I clearly did. It was the bevel gear assembly that I didn't strip. Back when I had the wheels refurbished, I also had the discs blasted and then painted them myself. I obviously didn't do too good a job, as a few years later, and rust aside, they're looking quite tatty again. So I have another go. I don't know what paint I used last time, but this time I used VHT paint and cure the parts in the oven. The front discs are mounted on aluminium carriers and I apply the paint with the discs bolted in place. They will of course start rusting again as soon as they get wet, but hopefully the paint will last better this time around. The rear disc is held in place by 6 bolts that pass through from the inside of the hub, and the front with bolts that pass through the hub and both discs. I fitted the forks in the first video, these like the engine having been previously refurbished. Given their age, the chrome was and still is in pretty good condition. To get a rolling chassis I need to fit the handlebars and at the same time fit the headlamp brackets and associated rubbers. All of these parts making it quite difficult to move the forks and align the tops to the top yoke, hence the use of some silicone lubricant. Prior to refitting the wheel, I fit the battery base and the internal section of the rear mudguard. The mudguard really was quite tatty, but some time with varying degrees of wet and dry, followed by some polishing and the addition of some original black, has made it much more presentable. The mudguard also acts as the rear mount for the internal brackets around the battery box, so I fit these at the same time. The left side has a side panel mounting bracket and an aluminium bracket, the latter of which I clean up with some Scotch-Brite pads. Aluminium can be polished up beautifully, but I think that will be OTT. On the right side is the side panel mounting bracket. I've already refitted the bridge rectifier to this and I'll come back to the electrics in a later video. The front bolts on both sides also hold the rubber secure mounts for the battery, and on the right side the bracket for the indicator flasher units. For the bolts that are secured in the mudguard, I fit a couple of rubber washers underneath a penny washer so as not to stress the plastic of the mudguard. To fit the front wheel, I roll it into place and lift it to align it with the spindle hole in the left fork. The spindle is now pushed through enough so that I can fit the spacer between the wheel and the right fork, and then I push it right the way through. The original nut is showing its age with a bit of rust, so I replace it with a new zinc plated item after first fitting the large washer. There is a clamp bolt at the bottom of each fork leg, but as I'm pretty sure they will be out again at some point, I'm not tightening these up just yet. The back wheel is first rolled into place and then lifted and pushed onto the hubs such that the splines engage. Next, the rear caliper mounting plate is moved into position, which does take a bit of manoeuvring, and the slot at the front is aligned with the bracket on the swing arm. The spindle can now be pushed through and the washer and nut fitted. Same as the front, I'm not yet clamping the spindle in place. Regarding the spindles, they could both do with rechroming, but costs, and more importantly to me, the time required to do so, means that this is something that I'm going to defer. My current thinking is to turn a couple of new spindles using an appropriate grade of stainless steel, but that's a job for later. I now have a rolling chassis, but as it's easier to move around my workshop on my wooden trolley, I'll keep it as is for now. Next, I'm going to start on the electrics, as I really do need to get the loom back on the bike before I go any further. If you enjoyed the video, please do give me a thumbs up and maybe even subscribe. Thanks for watching.